Keep your mouth shut. Move it along. That's the instruction she received as one of them unzipped his trousers. A second one hit the recording button. The third one barricaded the corridor entrance. These men weren't intoxicated. They weren't acting carelessly. Their confidence came from knowing the surveillance was offline. The staircase was marked for repairs, and the woman they had cornered found herself isolated, vastly outnumbered, and clothed for mundane cleaning tasks. What these men failed to realize was that the woman they'd just touched was a Navy SEAL. 30 seconds passed, and one lay sprawled on the ground. Another was bleeding profusely. A third was sobbing, and the final one still clutched the mobile device. Except now it served as proof. Before we reveal how their scheme crumbled and the entire installation underwent internal investigation, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to Captain Joe's Stories, and drop a comment telling us which base you're tuning in from. Because this installation didn't just get rescued, it got reformed. The transport vehicle rumbled to a halt in front of a tan concrete administration structure with a single flag, one surveillance camera, and absolutely no fanfare. No formal salutes, no official procedures. Just another ordinary Tuesday at Redwood Joint Operations Base, a support installation that accommodated rotating mixed-service personnel for deployment preparation. The type of installation where personnel arrived to complete training, pass several assessments, and transfer elsewhere. However, Commander Morgan Hayes wasn't transferring elsewhere. She exited the vehicle carrying one compact duffel and no accompanying personnel. Nobody stepped forward to assist. Nobody had to. Her movements conveyed someone who didn't require recognition to command authority. Her uniform appeared clean, yet unremarkable. Nothing in her bearings suggested VIP status, yet nothing in her presence encouraged informal inquiry either. The climate was arid. The early hours carried the scent of baked asphalt and enlisted personnel perspiration. Hayes stopped briefly to survey the surroundings, not from anxiety, but from trained awareness. Emergency exits, rooftop configurations, which windows were darkened, and which reflected screen illumination. She tallied the details that most individuals overlooked, particularly those not anticipating problems. A corporal walked over holding a clipboard and displaying a smile, overly enthusiastic to seem authentic. He remarked with laughter that lingered excessively. Hayes locked eyes with him just long enough to cut the chuckle short. Then approach it as you normally would. He blinked before straightening his posture. She proceeded behind him, moving past notice boards covered with obsolete procedures and weathered inspirational displays. The administration section hummed with relaxed activity. NCOs walking briskly, footsteps echoing, communication devices crackling. Everyone appeared occupied enough to dodge direct gazes. Hayes observed what remained unspoken, how female service members softened their speech when particular men passed nearby. How conversations in the break area only stopped when officers came within hearing distance. How certain corridors had surveillance and others didn't. And how one notice on the repair log beside a stairwell had been duplicated so frequently the document resembled a faded ghost. On paper, she was present as a training integration assessor, part of a standard oversight group assigned to evaluate interbranch preparedness under pre-deployment scenarios. Off the record, she carried a sealed envelope in her bag containing 2 words. Most installation commanders dreaded more than formal discipline: climate audit. She'd come because someone hadn't merely fallen through the gaps. They'd been shoved aside quietly, methodically. The officer on duty motioned toward a corridor leading to provisional officer accommodations. Quote 2. She gave no verbal response, just offered a single nod and headed toward her assigned room. The soles of her boots made no sound. The radio conversation didn't shift, but behind her, someone double-checked her name badge, and in the quiet that settled, a structure already buckling under its own flaws didn't yet understand it had just been designated for reform. The walkthrough wasn't formally scheduled. No installation ever labeled it as such. But there was invariably someone, typically a logistics NCO, who offered to orient new personnel under the guise of being helpful. At Redwood, it was a sergeant named Torres. Courteous, talkative, and somewhat too relaxed. "You'll discover the annex has everything required," he explained, guiding Hayes past rows of low-profile barracks. Provisional arrangement, but adequate. Laundry facilities on the ground level. Restrooms were upgraded in 2021, if I recall correctly. The vending machines are perpetually malfunctioning, though. Hayes acknowledged with a nod, neither prompting further discussion nor dismissing it completely. She allowed him to continue speaking. Individuals invariably disclosed more when they weren't being questioned. They arrived at a narrow overhang leading into a plain cement corridor, the type that wouldn't meet standards at a superior post. The structure extended into a lengthy rectangle of individual occupancy chambers, Spartan quarters intended for temporary personnel, instructors, and rotating assessors like herself. "Your section of the corridor," Torres mentioned. "Peaceful. No adjacent occupants." "Acceptable," she responded. He indicated toward the side as they moved past a sealed entrance with a red X marked on the signage. The text "Stairway Access Utility Maintenance" were hardly readable beneath multiple layers of aged adhesive. "That particular one's unavailable, we reported it," he stated. "Got identified during the previous year's inspection. Technically, it shouldn't be accessible, but nobody goes near it." Hayes paused directly in front of it. The caution tape appeared clean, recently applied, the type you pulled from an unused roll. The locking device was damaged, the latch somewhat misaligned, as if someone had forced it open not long ago and never properly secured it afterward. Mounted above the entrance sat a compact circular camera housing. She angled her head upward. The characteristic red indicator LED remained dark. She refrained from mentioning it. She simply cataloged it mentally. Down the hall, another taped notification read, "Caution, inactive surveillance zone." That type of terminology didn't appear in any legitimate manual. As they proceeded along the corridor, Hayes's hearing detected a voice up ahead. Two women emerging from a chamber, uniforms partially fastened, laundry sacks slung over their shoulders. One spoke quietly to the other. "Just avoid the stairwell near the laundry facility." "Okay. I'm serious." The second woman glanced toward Hayes and fell silent. Both accelerated their pace and turned down a different hallway. Torres showed no reaction, or perhaps didn't register it. Hayes remained silent. By the moment she arrived at her designated chamber, she'd already constructed a mental blueprint of every obscured corner between her entrance and the laundry area. She documented that nobody supervised the side entrance past 1900 hours. The security rotation followed a predictable pattern, yet bypassed the annex completely on certain rounds, and if someone entered that utility stairwell, nobody would take notice unless they didn't emerge. Hayes shut her door and placed her bag down carefully. There was invariably a location like this one. Not condemned, not unlawful, just abandoned long enough that men wielding authority rewrote the regulations behind the warning tape. On this occasion, they hadn't anticipated her arrival. The morning briefing was already underway when Hayes entered the observation area, overlooking the combined unit operations chamber. She positioned herself off to one side, partially in darkness, Just another visiting officer present to review procedures. At least that's the assumption they made. The chamber buzzed with informal hierarchy. Mid-tier NCOs, junior lieutenants, instructors from various branches. Uniforms differed, but the atmosphere remained uniform. Manufactured enthusiasm masking stale repetition. The type of setting where authority grew complacent and culture dominated. At the heart of the commotion sat Sergeant Marcus Webb, trim, composed, teeth impossibly bright, his voice projected even when he wasn't attempting to. He represented the type of man who earned descriptions as a born leader because he grinned when cutting you off. He commanded attention alongside three others. Corporal Travis Grant, stockier, more boisterous, lacking Webb's sharpness. He struck shoulders excessively hard and invaded personal space. Private First Class Cruz, the youngest of the bunch, anxious, desperate to belong, constantly watching Webb for signals. And Specialist Ethan Rowe, reserved, angular, perpetually holding a phone, feigning distraction. Hayes had encountered that category previously, the documentarian, not courageous, merely calculating. Webb held influence not through official rank, but through proximity to authority and the ability to deflect accountability. He operated training rotations with mixed personnel, supervised annex scheduling, and conducted informal mentorship sessions that nobody formally documented. He smiled constantly. That was the warning sign. Hayes didn't approach. She observed. From her position, she watched Webb lean back in his seat, one arm draped casually across the chair beside him, his attention shifting between his group and the junior female specialists walking past. His gaze tracked them just slightly too long. Not overtly, just enough. Grant noticed and grinned. Cruz laughed nervously. Rowe didn't lift his eyes from his device, but his thumb stopped moving. Hayes cataloged every micro-expression. She'd witnessed this dynamic in different branches, different installations, different eras. The mechanics never altered. A charismatic figure, a loyal crew, a location where oversight was minimal, and a culture that rewarded silence. She withdrew from the observation area before anyone registered her presence. Back in her chamber, she accessed the installation's digital personnel database using her temporary command credentials. She initiated with Webb's service record. 9 years enlisted. 2 commendations for leadership. 1 counseling notation for inappropriate conduct, subsequently dismissed. Transferred to Redwood 18 months prior. She cross-referenced his arrival timeline with female personnel transfer requests. Within 90 days of Webb's assignment, 4 women requested immediate reassignment. 2 cited personal reasons. 1 mentioned unspecified stress. The 4th provided no explanation. Hayes pulled their records individually. All 4 had unblemished service histories. All 4 departed within their first rotation cycle. All 4 were subsequently stationed at separate installations, none returning to combined training environments. She documented the pattern. Then she accessed the incident reporting system. Over the preceding 2 years, Redwood logged 3 harassment complaints. 2 were classified as unsubstantiated due to insufficient evidence. 1 was dismissed as miscommunication. All 3 originated from the annex section. All 3 mentioned the stairwell. None resulted in disciplinary measures. Hayes leaned back and regarded her screen. This wasn't a single predator. This was infrastructure. A system that had learned to consume complaints and generate excuses. She required more than testimony. She required something undeniable. So she constructed a trap. The plan was straightforward. Hayes would position herself in the exact location where the system had failed others. She'd simulate vulnerability. She'd observe who responded and how the structure either protected or exposed them. The following evening, she descended to the annex laundry area at 2100 hours. She wore standard duty attire, no rank insignia visible, hair secured back, appearing like any off-duty personnel managing mundane tasks. The facility was vacant. The machines hummed softly. Overhead lighting flickered intermittently. She loaded a washer, then lingered, sorting items slowly back toward the corridor. Footsteps reverberated, multiple sets. She didn't pivot. The steps halted just beyond the entrance, then voices low and measured. "That's the new officer. You certain?" "Yeah, saw her earlier. She's alone." Hayes maintained her position, continuing her sorting. The voices approached closer. She recognized one, Webb's unmistakable cadence. "Always wondered if Navy types actually do their own laundry," he remarked, just loud enough for her to hear. His tone was conversational, but the underlying edge was unmistakable. Hayes turned gradually. Webb stood in the doorway, Grant and Cruz flanking him. Rowe lingered further back, phone in hand, angled slightly. Filming? She didn't acknowledge it yet. "Evening, gentlemen," she stated evenly. Webb's smile broadened. "Didn't mean to interrupt. Just making sure everything's secure down here. We look after our personnel." "I'm certain you do," Hayes replied. Her tone remained neutral, but her posture shifted subtly, weight balanced, hands visible. Webb's gaze traveled briefly, assessing. Then he stepped forward. One step. Just inside the threshold. "You know, this section gets pretty isolated after hours," he mentioned. "Easy to feel, I don't know. Vulnerable." Hayes didn't retreat. "I don't experience vulnerability, Sergeant." Something flickered across Webb's expression. Not alarm, but recalculation. Grant shifted his weight, glancing toward Webb for direction. Cruz remained frozen. Rowe's thumb continued moving across his screen. "Good to know," Webb finally stated. He retreated one step. "We'll leave you to it then." They departed, footsteps receding down the corridor. Hayes waited until silence returned. Then she moved swiftly to the stairwell entrance Torres had indicated the previous day. She tested the door. It opened effortlessly, the damaged lock yielding instantly. Inside, the stairwell was dim, illuminated by a single emergency fixture. The camera dome overhead remained inactive, LED still dark. She ascended one level and paused. On the landing, scratched into the painted cinder block, were initials and dates, some recent, some months old. Beneath one set of initials, someone had etched, "He said nobody would believe me." Hayes photographed everything. Then she descended and returned to her chamber. She didn't rest. Instead, she accessed the installation's maintenance records. She located the work order for the stairwell camera. It had been submitted 14 months ago. Status: pending parts. The same status for 14 consecutive months. She cross-referenced the maintenance supervisor. Staff Sergeant Bradley Cole, Installation Administration. She pulled his file. 9 years in admin, impeccable record. Conducted multiple culture briefings. He'd also signed off on 2 of the 3 dismissed harassment complaints. Hayes forwarded everything to her encrypted backup. Then she composed a message to her command liaison. Subject line: pattern confirmed. Requesting authorization to proceed with full climate investigation. She transmitted it at 0200 hours. By 0400, she received her response. Authorization granted. Proceed with evidence collection. Coordinate with legal for prosecution support. Hayes didn't celebrate. She'd merely confirmed what she already understood. Now came the correction. The subsequent evening, Hayes returned to the laundry facility. Same time, same appearance. Except this time, she wasn't isolated. Concealed in an adjacent maintenance closet, two military police investigators waited with recording equipment. Positioned at the annex exterior entrance, a legal officer monitored from an unmarked vehicle, and secured in Hayes' pocket was a compact audio recorder, activated. She initiated her laundry routine. Within 12 minutes, footsteps approached. This time, all four. Webb, Grant, Cruz, and Rowe. Their confidence was unmistakable. Webb entered first, smile already formed. "Back again," he observed. "You really like it down here." Hayes faced him directly. "It's functional." Grant moved to her left, positioning himself between her and the primary exit. Cruz blocked the corridor entrance. Rowe remained back, phone raised, angle obvious. "You know," Webb continued, moving closer, "you're pretty isolated down here. People don't really check this area." "That's unfortunate," Hayes stated calmly. Webb's smile faltered slightly. "What? That you assume I'm isolated?" she clarified. He laughed, but it sounded forced. "Just making conversation." "Are you?" Hayes asked. "Because it seems like you're attempting to intimidate me." Webb's expression hardened. "Nobody's intimidating anyone. Then you won't object to stepping back," Hayes stated. It wasn't a question. Grant moved first, advancing instead of retreating. Big words for someone who's outnumbered. Hayes didn't flinch. She'd calculated distances, angles, vulnerabilities. She understood precisely how this would unfold if they escalated, and she was prepared. But she didn't need to demonstrate. Because at that moment, the maintenance closet door opened and two MPs emerged, badges displayed, recording equipment visible. "Military police," the senior investigator announced. Nobody moves. Webb's face drained of color. Grant froze mid-step. Cruz stumbled backward. Rowe's phone clattered to the floor. Hayes stepped forward, directly toward Webb. Her voice dropped, cold and precise. "You're under investigation for harassment, intimidation, and conspiracy to create a hostile environment. Anything you say can and will be used against you." Webb opened his mouth, then closed it. Grant looked toward the exit. The MP blocked it. "It's finished," Hayes stated. Then the structure started to transform. Not loudly, not with sirens, but with communications. The installation maintained a discreet reporting inbox, an anonymous, rarely utilized form buried 3 links deep in the equal opportunity portal. Nobody accessed it unless they'd already abandoned hope of being believed. Hayes checked it at 0007 hours. It contained 12 new submissions. By 0045, the count had increased to 21. Brief statements, direct phrases. "I witnessed Sergeant Webb block a corpsman in the stairwell last month. They always claim the camera's offline. It typically is. They label the annex the safe zone. Not for us, for them. I got reassigned after I attempted to report a stairwell incident. They made me weep and mocked me about it. Then someone pursued me to my quarters." Hayes reviewed them all. Some originated from current service members. Some from women who'd been rotated out months earlier. Some included attachments, screenshots of private conversations, jokes, even a meme from a group message called Code Gray. The meme showed a low-resolution photo of the annex corridor captioned, quote 5. It had been transmitted by Webb 2 weeks earlier. By 0200, a legal consultant from Group Command contacted Hayes directly. She transmitted the video evidence. She didn't add commentary. The reaction was instantaneous. Authorization approved for temporary investigative command. Proceed with protocol escalation. Investigate previous complaints. Re-interview all formerly transferred women. Identify any climate non-reporting enablers within installation leadership. That was the critical terminology, enablers. Because predators like Webb and Grant didn't function independently. They functioned within environments, and Hayes had already begun mapping hers, cross-referencing the previous 2 years of personnel information. She identified 7 transfer requests submitted by women within 60 days of assignment to mixed training units. 3 counseling intake reports mentioning stress symptoms connected to peer harassment without official complaint. 1 legal memorandum where a prior report regarding stairwell misconduct had been dismissed under inconclusive footage. The authorization on that memorandum, Staff Sergeant Bradley Cole, Installation Administration. He'd classified it as resolved misunderstanding and sealed the file. Hayes pulled Cole's file. He'd served in admin for 9 years, maintained his reputation, smiled excessively, delivered culture briefings with recycled slides. She tagged his name for Command Climate Review inclusion. The structure was designed to postpone. She simply eliminated its justifications. By 0300, the annex stairwell was secured with legitimate military caution tape and an assigned watch rotation. Engineering filed a maintenance override to reactivate the disabled camera. By 0400, Hayes's office had received 3 physical visitor communications. Notes slipped beneath her door. "Thank you. I wasn't aware we were permitted to resist. He's been doing it for years. I hope he suffers." She documented every one of them, not as evidence but as validation. She didn't need to make noise. She simply needed the proof to reach the appropriate authorities. And now the structure that averted its gaze, it couldn't ignore what it had just permitted. At 0700 sharp, Morgan Hayes stood outside the office of Colonel Stephen Burke, the installation commander. The sky above the perimeter barrier was pale gray, the type that muted the colors of the flags behind her. The annex was already active again. Cadence calls, engine inspections, chow line conversation, but the rhythm was disrupted. Everyone sensed it. She didn't knock. She entered. Burke glanced up from behind his desk. The exhaustion beneath his eyes communicated everything. He hadn't slept, and he hadn't stopped receiving reports. A half-consumed mug of coffee sat to his right. His uniform was regulation perfect. His posture wasn't. "Commander," he stated quietly. Hayes didn't acknowledge pleasantries. She advanced forward and placed a substantial black file on his desk, 2 inches thick, tabbed, time-stamped, cross-referenced. He opened it and scanned the initial page. Within seconds, his face lost color. Inside was the complete report, the sealed video evidence, chain of custody verification, names of the 4 men implicated, 6 prior anonymous complaints that matched the identical hallway, 3 transfer histories connected to dismissed female personnel, screenshots from the Code Gray group conversation, climate silence patterns traced across 2 years. No analysis, no speculation, just irrefutable structure. "This isn't official yet," he murmured. "It will be," Hayes stated. He didn't argue. She retrieved a sealed envelope from her side pouch and positioned it beside the file. "Authorization packet," she explained. "I'm invoking temporary command access under the OSD Title IX Climate Compliance Directive. You're not being removed, but from this moment forward, you'll be following my directives regarding personnel action and culture audit response." Burke stared at the envelope. "Is this a command override?" "It's a system audit," she replied. "Of your system?" He reclined slowly, the weight of it settling all at once. "What do you require from me?" Hayes lifted a compact notepad from her inside pocket. It wasn't digital. It didn't need to be. She read the list without glancing up. I require a formal review board convened within 72 hours. I require external investigators, not internal personnel. I require all past sexual harassment claims reopened, especially the ones dismissed as inconclusive. He nodded. I require leadership role freezes across Annex B and the Mixed Branch Training Wing. I require mentorship assignments suspended until reassessment is complete. Done, he stated. I require the 4 men separated to installations where they'll be flagged for Article 120 review. If court-martial isn't pursued, they go to non-operational duty stations, quiet posts, warehouses, understood. I require the administrative NCO who closed the 2023 complaint re-evaluated for enabling concealment of hostile behavior. Burke swallowed. Cole. She didn't nod, didn't confirm. She'd already flagged his clearance status. Annex B will receive new cameras, new patrol patterns, new reporting chains. Yes, ma'am. Then she paused. One more thing. He met her eyes. Everyone on this installation will understand that what happened wasn't merely misconduct. It was normalized entitlement protected by routine, and from now on, routine isn't protection anymore. He remained silent. Hayes turned to depart, then stopped at the door. If your officers didn't know, she stated, quote 6. She looked over her shoulder. But if they did know and they chose silence, I'll find them next. Burke closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, something in his posture had changed. I believe you. Hayes departed without ceremony. Outside, the day was progressing as if nothing had occurred. PT formations were assembling, equipment checks underway. One company was already loading transport containers onto a flatbed, but the rhythm had shifted. In the chow line, 3 junior female enlisted stood closer together than usual, but taller. On the way to the motor pool, a medic passed Hayes and didn't salute. She just nodded once, slow and grateful. A message had traveled. Not in a press release, not in a speech, but in how women carried themselves. Not fearless, just unafraid to be seen. Hayes didn't smile. She wasn't here to inspire. She was here to document, to escalate, to correct. And now that the correction had begun, the system didn't get to pretend anymore. What would you have done in Hayes's position? Strike immediately or expose the entire system from the inside out? And do you think predators ever stop on their own? Or only when the system stops protecting them? If this story made you think, hit the like button, subscribe to Captain Joe's Stories, and don't forget to turn on the bell icon so you never miss an upload. Share this video with someone who still thinks silence is strength, and check out the next story on your screen. It's one you won't forget. I'll see you tomorrow, same